Smoke. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Dude, I would be so mad. Yo guys, what is up? Max here in our Elden Ring video, and today we're going over the top 5 strongest PvP setups or builds for this new Colosseum update. Now there's been some changes to some of the PvP weapons that rolled out with this update, and I took a bunch of my builds that I've made over the past few months and brought them into the Colosseum, as well as getting my butt handed to me by a few other weapons and builds that I ended up trying, and I've compiled a bunch of different information and builds for you guys to share so that you can have some guidance to what works well, at least for me, in the PvP Colosseums. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. Before we get into the specific builds, we've got to talk about some just like good things to know if you're getting into PvP. If you're like been playing PvP for a long time, you probably already know these things, but one thing I wanted to cover is poise. Now, if you're wearing armor, you have poise. If you get hit by an attack that does or has more poise damage than you have poise, you get staggered. This will stop your attack if you're mid-animation from going through, and it can lead up to some pretty brutal follow-up damage, so having some poise to kind of power through some basic attacks is really, really nice, and your opponents will have a harder time dealing with you. Now, obviously, not everyone can have like a bazillion poise, so a good number to shoot through is around 60 poise. 58 or 59 is good. 65 is really solid. If you can get to 100, that's great. A lot of the like colossal weapons, the great axes, will just plow through 100 poise still. A lot of the great hammers, great axes are still going to destroy you. Even if you have 100 poise, you're still going to get staggered. But a lot of the like more common or like smaller weapons, the spears, katanas, if you have 60 poise, you will not get staggered by them, so that's like a good number to shoot through. As you can see, like Godskin Stitchers, 63, so 65 would be a great number, but having a little bit of poise will go a long way. And one last thing before we get into the specific builds, if you're looking for a class of weapons to try in PvP, weapons that are honestly a little bit stronger than other weapons, some things to try out are spears. Spears are really strong. Great spears are really good. Colossal weapons, like colossal great swords, are good. They're harder to land attacks on, but they can do some really crazy damage, plus stagger. Sometimes it's nice to have a bit of setup for them. Thrusting swords are really, really strong. I strongly recommend the Clean Rot Knight Sword and the S-Stock, if you have it, are really great for roll catching people. And those are kind of some of my favorite weapons. If you're just looking for like, what do I bring into PvP? You can't go wrong with that. Some people also swear by halberds. Those are solid, but those are kind of my like weapon category recommendations. Coming in at our number 5 spot is just pure strength stacking builds. Now, this build that I'm on right now is a little under leveled. I'm only level 110. This character hasn't actually beaten the campaign of, or the story of Elden Ring yet on this save, but we're stacking as much strength as we can. We're using giant colossal hammers. I've got the heavy giant crusher. I'd prefer to have 2. I don't have 2 of these yet because I haven't started a second playthrough. So we've got the other one, which is Prelate's heavy inferno crusher. These things in this build is spec'd to one-shot enemies. That is the whole goal of this setup. Now, we're wearing these 2 hammers with Royal Knight's Resolve. This is going to buff up the damage of our next attack, basically prepping for one-shots. We've got the Raptor's Black Feather Cloak on, which increases the damage of our next jump attack, and we're rocking as much poise as I can fit right now. Obviously, 41 poise is not ideal. I'd love to get this up more to like 65. Once this character gets a little bit higher level, we could do that and some better medallions. But we're pairing that with the Claw Talisman to enhance our jump attacks. Great Jar's Arsenal, because we are using heavy hammers. We need to be able to stay at least medium. I've got Radagon's Sword Seal on. This is just kind of like a level buffer. Once I'm at a higher level, I'd change this to more physical defense, more poise. The more poise talisman would be great, or the more health, or Green Turtle for more stamina recovery speed. Probably the more poise so we can tank through hits with our hammers and punish people that try to hit us. And then just also because I'm lacking a little bit of levels, I would go for Faith. But these two spots are very much flex slots. You could go more defense, you could go more health, you could go more stamina, just anything to kind of augment our stuff, because we're already doing so much damage with the Claw Talisman plus the Black Feathers and then just pure strength stacking. With this build, you're going to want a bunch of endurance, strength, as much health as you can fit in, and then if you've got extra points, I would spec them into Faith, because you can use incantations like Flame Grant Me Strength to further boost up the damage of your attacks. And that is our number 5 spot, just pure strength scaling, one-shot damage. This build does have a lot of bad matchups, things that can counter it, people that will play around your really slow attacks. But if you get some good timing and some good matchups, it'll just one-shot anyone. It's ridiculous. They will not survive hits from these weapons. So yeah, that is our number 5 spot. At our number 4 spot, we have Arcane scaling. Now with Arcane, you can either go Dex or you can go Strength, depending on which weapons you want to use. For the build that I've been rocking, we're using Mogwin's Sacred Spear. This is a absolutely ridiculous weapon. It is a great spear, which has some of the longest reach of any of the weapons in the game. It does tons of blood loss buildup. It scales with Strength and Arcane, and it has one of the strongest like Ashes of War, where you can just 100 to 0 people if they stay in that vicinity with that. Plus, you can scale it with Flame Grant Me Strength. I've got like slightly the wrong stuff on just because I didn't have enough stuff to rank up my weapons, but I'd be using the Mogwin Sacred Spear, Dragon Communion Seal. I just had the Giant Seal on because it is leveled up right now, and then Reduvia for quick kills, possibly if enemies get away from your Sacred Spear. We're using the White Mask to increase our attack when there's blood loss in our vicinity. This is going to give us more damage. We've got enough poise to get over the 65 threshold. We're sitting at 75. This means that our spear attacks aren't going to get interrupted by most attacks besides like colossal or great weapons, which is really great to have. We've got Lord of Blood's Exaltation for increased damage when there's more blood loss in our vicinity, which is going to be happening a lot, especially with our casting of our blood loss spells. The Shard of Alexander to do even more damage with our Ashes of War. I've got the Faith Talisman on to raise up Faith. If I was spec'd better, I wouldn't need this, and instead I could either go for the Crimson Amber Medallion, maybe the Erd Tree's Favor, or something like the Great Jar if you want to go for more poise. I just needed to fit the Faith there on my thing. And then the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. This is also a flex slot if you want more health, more stamina. Really, it depends. But with this setup, you're going to be inflicting bleeds. You've got a crazy strong weapon, and with our incantations, we've got Blood Boon, which is great for creating space for yourself or pinning people. We've also got Flame Grant Me Strength to buff ourselves up, and Swarm of Flies, which is a really great chase incantation to use. You can cast it, run at enemies, it'll chase enemies, you can run at them, you can try to catch their dodge roll while they're rolling away from that, and it's overall just a very strong setup for PvP. Now we're in our top 3, and unfortunately it's a bit of a 3-way tie between my 3 favorite, or the 3 builds that I've had the most success with. I consistently get wins with these setups. They are ridiculously strong to the point of being a little cheesy, to be honest with you, and they don't really have weak sides to them. And we're starting off with our Lightning Dex build. Now, there are a few different ways that you can go about this. Lightning Dex is incredibly strong, and on this setup, we're using the Bolt of Grand Sax. Now, I only have one of these. If I was on my second playthrough, I'd be able to use 2 of them. Ideally, I'd be using 2 of them, but this weapon is so freaking strong. It's got a great move set. We're pairing it right now with the Heavy Partisan for that like dual wield scythe, or sorry, not scythe, spear with like really good poking moves. But the big thing that this has is a lightning spear that goes ridiculously far, that does absurd damage. This does as much damage, this lightning attack does as much damage as like a heavy hit from like a colossal greatsword. It has really fast travel time. It flies across the entire Colosseum, and the amount of people that I've killed with this thing is absurd because they just don't have time to react to it, and it does so much damage. I've seen this thing hit easily over 1,000 damage on hits, and you've got incredible damage at range really, really ridiculous damage range. And you've also like very confident in close range, as well as being able to wear more heavy armor so that we're not like, we can kind of tank through some attacks, get those spear attacks in. It's just all around really, really strong. For our gear, I'm wearing the Malformed Dragon set with the Haligtree helm, just stuff that I thought matched the look. We've got the Sacred Scorpion Charm, and this is where it's really cool. We're using the Shard of Alexander, which greatly boosts the attack power of our skills, which is amazing, and Godfrey's Icon. Now, Godfrey's Icon increases the damage of charge spells and some skills. Not all skills, some skills. The Bolt of Grand Sax, which actually got buffed fairly recently, falls under the list of things that is buffed by Godfrey's Icon. So we're double buffing it with these two. Another buff with the Sacred Scorpion Charm, and then I'm using the Great Shield Talisman to ginormously boost our physical damage negation if people do get up on top of us. With this build, you can go as little or as much faith as you want. You don't actually need any faith for the Bolt of Grand Sax, but if you want to use incantations that can bolster your arsenal and variety of attacks, you can spec more faith onto this, and this build just slaps. I've gotten my highest kill like Colosseums with this exact setup. Coming in our number 2 spot is our Flame Paladin faith using build. Now I kind of mixed Flame Paladin with the Lord of Lightning build. Those are 2 builds I posted on YouTube if you want to check them out together. They have almost 2 million views, so they're very popular builds, and they work incredibly well in PvE as well as PvP. Now the real strength of this build is in the versatility of things that it can do in terms of just attacks that it can whip out. Now I've just got some things to show, but some weapons that I like using on this build are the Blasphemous Blade, the Sacred Relic Sword, and Vike's War Spear. All really good faith scaling weapons. Blasphemous Blade and Sacred Relic Sword are ranged attacks in the Colosseum when you have multiple people, 2 people attacking, 3, 4, 5, up to like I guess 5 other players. The Sacred Relic Greatsword can cover a massive amount of area, and I've killed multiple people with a single attack of this sort, especially with the amount of damage that we're hitting on. If you have a group of people that are fighting and they're not looking at you, Blasphemous Blade is absurd. It can one-shot people in the Colosseum. And then for dealing with people that want to get up close with us, we've got Vike's War Spear, which also has a crazy slam attack for madness buildup, but it is also a spear, so it's got a decent move set. This build is not as great when enemies get as close to you. You can use, if you wanted to, more of a thrusting sword or a katana for close range, but those are kind of the weapons that I enjoy using on it. And then we can rock so many different incantations. Honed Bolt is one of the strongest PvP incantations, just because it does a lightning bolt really quickly. You can hold it down for more damage. We've got Fortis Axe's Lightning Spear for just big AoE damage. Golden Vow to buff ourselves up. Black Flame is a really good incantation. It does a ton of damage. We've got Frenzied Burst. This will snipe people from across the map. You can hold it down for more damage. Inflict Madness on them. Pair that with our Vike's War Spear for even more madness buildup. Flame Great Me Strength to boost up our Blasphemous Blade. And then if we take damage, you can just pop a heal and heal both in the team, in the game modes where you have like people on your team and just solo. You can heal yourself. This build is extremely versatile, and both the Blasphemous Blade and the Sacred Relic Greatsword will straight up 100 to 0 people very quickly, as well as the Vike's what is it called, War Spear. Yeah. There's just you've got so much at your like fingertips in terms of what you can do that it becomes really hard to play against, because you never know what's going to be coming next from a build like this. You've got ranged, you've got close, you've got AoE, and yeah, it's really, really powerful. And finally, at our number 1 spot, remember, this is for the Colosseum update. This build works extremely well with multiple people that you're fighting versus like one-on-ones, but the build that is just absolutely absurd, so versatile, can do it all, and I think is relatively tied with the Faith build that I just showed and the Dexterity, like lightning build. This build is also extremely strong. It's so good. Is an Intelligence Dex build, or like straight intelligence or intelligence strength. The way that I've built this is mainly focusing intelligence and dexterity, more of a caster build, because magic, in my opinion, even though I love incantations and faith, sorceries are just so versatile, and there's so many things that you can do with them. Now, for this build, we're using both the Dark Moon Greatsword, which can build up frost. If you get frost on an opponent, they're pretty much good as dead. You've got some big heavy hits with that, and then you can quickly swap to the Moonveil Katana with blood loss, and we all know how crazy the Moonveil Katana is. Really fast damage, catches people off guard. We're using a +10 Lusette's Glintstone staff for our staff for casting our sorceries. The Snow Witch hat to boost cold sorceries. We've got the Cerulean Amber Medallion on for increasing our FP. Radagon's Icon to shorten our spell casting time. The Graven Mask Talisman to raise the potency of our sorceries, and our Magic Scorpion Charm to increase our magic damage. This combo of just up close damage with Dark Moon Greatsword and Moonveil and long range AoE damage, you can provide some really crazy AoE damage, is just so silly. In terms of sorceries to use, there's so many and you can't really go wrong. Personally, I like the Stars of Ruin sorcery, Loretta's Mastery for that huge AoE burst. The Cannon of Hema is probably my favorite for Colosseum because you can kill, like, I've killed multiple people with one throw of this thing. The Gavel of Hema is also a lot of fun if people are chasing after you. It brings some big damage to them. Abdullah's Moonblade is really good. Collapsing Stars is a great combo sorcery. Gravity Magic will... this one is genuinely pretty hard to avoid. Someone was actually using this against me, and I was having trouble avoiding it, and they were comboing it, and then I tried it, and it works really well. Collapsing Stars will hit enemies, pull them in, and then you can hit them with your Moonlight Greatsword or your Moonlight Greatsword or the Katana. Carrion Slicer, just for that quick catch that people aren't really expecting. Night Shard's quick damage. Ambush Shard will hit enemies from behind. They're not expecting it. And then Magic Glint Blade will kind of confuse people because it attacks after a delay. It can be kind of unpredictable, and you can cast that and then kind of charge at people with your Katana. There's obviously a lot of choices here. You can go for more defensive sorceries if you would like to do that. I usually go pretty full offensive and try to whip out as much damage as I possibly can. But yeah, that is the video of the top 5 PvP builds that I have been enjoying. There are so many different ways to play PvP, obviously, and if you've got a style that you're comfortable with, you're gonna do well with that, especially if you put more time into PvP. I'm curious if you guys have any weapons that you swear by for PvP that I didn't talk about or mention here, but I hope you guys got a good grasp of some of the cool things that you can use in PvP, and I hope you enjoy the Colosseum update. Also, I'll be live streaming Elden Ring. I'm gonna try to make some fun meme PvP builds. This was very try-hardy, how to do the most damage. Now I kind of want to do some meme setups, and if you want to come over to the Twitch channel, I appreciate you dropping over there. I'll catch y'all on the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.